If you're still trying to overcome objections, you're already losing the sale. I know that's pretty much the opposite of what most sales trainers tell you. But stay with me because by the end of this video, you'll know how to make most objections disappear before they ever come up. I'm Brian Brereton with That Business Trainer. We created the sales framework to help you sell more without being salesy, especially helpful if you are an introvert who we feel can make the greatest salespeople. So if you're ready to join the elite, stick with us. So almost every sales methodology has a section on objection handling. They teach you scripts, rebuttals, clever ways to turn a no into a yes. And at first, it does sound like a good skill to have. But here's the problem. Once an objection has been raised, you are already in defensive mode. You're in a client tug-of-war. They say things like, this is too expensive, and then you're supposed to explain why it's worth it. They say, I need to think about it, and then you need to convince them why they don't. It's a back and forth that feels to me and other introverted sales professionals like an argument. And most sellers hate it, and most buyers hate it. Here's what most salespeople never realize. Objections are simply symptoms and not a root cause or a problem. If someone says it's too expensive, the real cause, the root of that is they don't see any value. And we need to think about it is we just don't trust the outcome. We're not seeing it. We're already working with someone. They don't see any reason to change. So trying to handle objections is like putting a plaster on a broken bone. It's surface level. The real damage happened much earlier in the conversation. Top salespeople, the elite salespeople who sell with quiet confidence, know the secret. You don't handle objections, you prevent them. Well, how do you do that? Well, you do a few things before the buyer ever considers throwing up these objections. You diagnose deeply. We keep coming back to that. Start anywhere, go everywhere, as long as you know where that anywhere is and where you're heading. You'll be able to uncover all these problems with the scope of what you're looking at, the urgency, any budgeting or cost issues. The buyer will feel you've really grasped their situation, and they're less likely to push back with something later. We address concerns before they're voiced. If you've sold in your industry for a while, you already know the top 3 to 5 objections you'll hear. So why would you let them come up and have to overcome them? Why can't you just bring them up? Bring them up early. Bring them up on your terms. That's what we show you how to do. Some clients will wonder if this will work with their existing systems. Here's how we've addressed that. So we don't have to hear about anything later we don't think it'll fit. And always build your value before revealing your price. If the buyer doesn't fully understand the value, every price is going to be too high. So we work on showing the impact first and numbers second. Now there will be occasions where that isn't possible, and that's okay. With our methods, we can start anywhere and go everywhere. When I was selling computer training, which I've talked about before, I almost never had to handle objections. Not because I was some master of persuasion. It's because I was relentless about understanding their world before talking about my solutions. I'd meet with these administrators, I'd meet with decision makers, and instead of jumping into features and jumping into the program, which they could then object to, I'd dig into where their team was struggling. I'd dig into what were the cost of mistakes and downtime. I'd even push them on, hey, why are we solving this today? If this is such an important issue to you, why didn't you solve it already? These are the hard questions that we can ask in an easy way. We look at the impact of any skills gaps that they might have on their business goals. By the time we talked about a solution to implement computer training, they already saw the cost of doing nothing. So price objections? Rarely. I need to think about it? Almost never. And of course, did I tell you I became the number one salesperson? Sorry, the number one salesperson in the world for that company? How I smashed their records in the first month? See, when you prevent objections instead of handling them, a few things happen. The buyer feels heard and understood. People are far less likely to push back against someone they feel is on their side. And you remove the fight from the sale. It's no longer a game of prove me wrong. It's a collaborative problem solving session. And believe it or not, you shorten the sales cycle. Less back and forth, faster decisions, cleaner closes. And here's the kicker. You still end up handling all the objections, but you do it before they harden into deal killers. So here's your action plan for your next sales conversation. I want you to list your top 3 to 5 most common objections. I've done this exercise with sales teams all over the world. I've never had a team list more than 6 objections on the board. So write them down. And then for each, create yourself a preemptive question or statement, something that gets it out in the open early. If you need help with that, let me know. Slow down the diagnosis. Spend more time asking about the current situation, challenges, and consequences. If you're talking more than they are in the first half of the conversation, you're doing it wrong. Frame the solution when you get to it in their words. When you finally present, use the exact phrases they've used to describe the problem and all the things we use to overcome these objections, to bring them to the forefront. You want them to hear their own logic reflected back to them. And remember, objections aren't a wall you need to climb over or break through. They're a signal that you missed something earlier. So stop trying to be the best objection handler in the room and start being the best objection preventer. Do that, you'll close more deals with far less stress and fewer of those awkward tug-of-war moments with your client. If this was helpful to you, please do us a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to us if you want more. And next time, we'll talk more about the most powerful sales question that you're probably not asking. Until then,